Oh, this? You wouldn't understand. It's a Gucci.
Okay, no, it's not actually Gucci, but I'll tell you what is Gucci. House of Gucci, which I went to an early showing of last week so that you don't have to. So should you trade in your turkey for popcorn and spend Thanksgiving in the movies this year? Well, find out in this spoiler-free summary. Welcome to Anorak's Entertainment. I'm your host for today, Adam Leach. I pop on the channel from time to time after seeing early screenings of movies just to tell you if they're worth going to the theater or not. So is this one? Well, let's get into it. House of Gucci is a wild, true story about fashion, success, excess, family drama.
It's like an episode of Mari in a Gucci belt.
Brought to you by the same guy who gave us hits like Blade Runner, Alien, countless other classic films. Ridley Scott switches up his style a little bit to tell us the story of Maurizio and Patrizia Gucci and the Gucci family. We've got Lady Gaga, Adam Driver, Al Pacino, Jared Leto, Salma Hayek, Jeremy Irons. You really couldn't ask for too much more talent than this, but did they pull it off? Is it worth a watch, and does it live up to all the Oscar hype? Well, before I get to the positives, let me start with the negatives. Because even though this movie is entertaining, and I'm glad I saw it, it does have some glaring flaws to me. It is a bit of a beautiful mess. First, let me address the elephant in the room, the accent. There has been a bit of a debate about the quality of accents in this movie, specifically Lady Gaga's. Gaga stands swear up and down that her performance is absolutely flawless, and only haters are saying otherwise. Some think her accent is a little off, and some others think it's downright terrible. This argument was further fueled when Italian dialogue coach Francesca Di Martini, who coached Salma Hayek on set, stated, and I quote, "I feel bad saying this, but her accent is not exactly an Italian accent. It sounds more Russian." Now, Gaga fans insist that Francesca is just being petty and jealous because she auditioned for the role, but she didn't get it. So what's my opinion? Well, let me start here. Beforehand, I had no idea about the history of the Gucci family. I didn't know their names. I didn't know their origins. I'm totally unbiased in my conclusion here. After seeing a snippet of the trailer months ago, I actually walked away not knowing everyone was Italian. I actually had a conversation with someone and said, yeah, this movie looks cool. They all have different accents like Italian or Polish or Russian or something. I had already unconsciously picked up on some sort of inconsistency with accents. Then, after learning more about the story and seeing the movie, I was like,
oh, they're all Italian.
Despite Patrizia being a pretty Italian name, my wife apparently didn't even pick up on it during the movie. So then after leaving the movie, I discovered that quote from Francesca, and then I saw a lot of actual Italians online that were either unimpressed or downright mad at her accent, so I started getting even more interested. I definitely hear Italian influence, but what is it exactly that is making people feel so off? Well, I'm not the kind of person to tell you I don't like something without giving you a good reason, so I dug syllable by syllable. I got obsessive about it because I wanted to know, why are people hearing this differently? Comparing Gaga's scenes next to clips of the real Patrizia speaking English, I began noticing obvious differences. And it's funny because her fans put these clips together to convince people that they were the exact same, but they ended up convincing me the opposite because I heard definite differences. Now, Gaga fans, don't come at me. I think she's a great actor. I think accents are very hard and very particular. I'm just trying to help you understand exactly what other people are hearing. So I dug, and the first thing I noticed was,
it's time to take out the trash. The trash.
I am fair.
In American English, we have a hard R sound. Our tongues don't touch the roofs of our mouths. It's more in the back. Italians, however, do what is called either an alveolar tap or an alveolar trill. Their tongue actually touches the top of their mouth, somewhere behind their teeth. A trill is a trill. An alveolar tap is more like a singular slap or flip of the tongue. It can sound kind of like a D.
It's better to cry in Rolls Royce than to be happy on a bicycle. Cry. You are in hiding.
Very happy. All my problems were gone. To New York. Apartment.
Another example is most Italian words end in vowels. Because they aren't used to words ending in consonants, when they speak English, they often add an extra vowel at the end to help pronunciation. Jared Leto did this a lot in this movie, but it kind of crossed into an exaggerated and almost offensive Mario and Luigi territory. This is like the biggest and most stereotypically recognized Italian accent trait, and Gaga rarely, if ever, does it in this film, but you can hear Patrizia do it in interviews, and she does it fairly often.
Okay, not. We have this good. You are not.
The best apartment was shot, received.
There are quite a few other examples, but just so I don't spend all day on this, I'll give you two more ones that I heard. There is no sound in Italian, so they tend to omit that letter altogether.
You are not in hiding. In hiding. Tend to be happy, be happy.
The exception to this is when saying English words that start with a vowel. Sometimes they do what's called hypercorrection, and they actually add an H in the beginning. So words like out become haut. And with the TH sound, there really is no equivalent in Italian, so they tend to pronounce their THs as Ts or Ds. So path becomes pat, that becomes dat. These are things that you can obviously hear Patrizia do sometimes, but Lady Gaga doesn't often do, therefore creating an audible inconsistency with her accent. Sometimes she sounds Italian, sometimes it slips into like an Eastern European or Polish. The main problem here is that when Patrizia is speaking English, she is Italian attempting to sound English or American. But Lady Gaga is an American attempting to sound like an Italian, attempting to sound like an American.
Accent inception.
She's just the most obvious because she's playing a big character with a big attitude and personality. All of their accents are fairly inconsistent from one another. The best course of action here would have been to hire Italian actors and do the movie in Italian, or do it in English with English-speaking Italians. You're gonna run into accuracy and consistency issues anytime you hire someone to imitate a complicated accent that isn't theirs. That being said, I'm not saying I could speak like a full-blooded Italian for a whole movie either. It's hard. I understand how difficult it is and how much work and preparation it took. And though it's rather distracting for me because since I was a kid, I tend to obsess over interesting sounds and accents, so I notice things. That's not even the primary issue I have with this movie. I just wanted to cover it to kind of give you guys more understanding of what other people are hearing. The primary issues I have with this movie fall on the director. The pacing and timeline of this movie are really quite off-feeling to me. I mean, this story spans a wide timeline, like 15 plus years. It's really difficult to fit all that into 2.5 hours. I didn't have any problem with the runtime. It can't be any shorter. There were just a lot of jarring moments where I wasn't sure quite what happened or how much time went by. When I left the theater and I looked at the actual timeline of events in real life, I was like, holy cow, I had no idea all this time had passed between these events. Or there were events that literally didn't line up accurately. Pacing wise, it was often kind of choppy and peculiar feeling to me. As an example, in the beginning there's a sex scene in an office, right? And they're pounding away for like a solid minute. I understand, they're banging. The opera music was a nice touch, but I don't need to watch them pound to a crescendo for a full minute when there are other parts of the movie that could have desperately used that time. Like the scene where Maurizio has an argument with his dad, he starts getting heated, tension builds, he says something to stand up for himself. I think, ooh, this is about to get really great. And then it cuts off and we're in a different place. It felt like something was there and they accidentally cut it out. This story is just a difficult one to tell in this short amount of time. Truth be told, it would have been a phenomenal HBO series. I don't feel like I totally knew or understood some of the characters enough to get attached to them. The timeline felt like kind of a mystery. It wasn't flowing. Sometimes the tones didn't match and it felt like I was watching two different movies at once. I mean, Jared Leto was freaking hilarious, but he was in a different movie entirely. Ridley Scott is a wonderful director, but this movie is a kind of a bizarre choice for him in my opinion. This type of movie, fashion, excess, tax fraud, murder, this has Martin Scorsese's name written all over it. The whole time I was in the movie, I kept thinking this is kind of a similar theme to Wolf of Wall Street. A very large movie with larger than life characters spanning a wide frame of time, but that movie was nearly flawless, and I think that has a lot to do with pacing and tone. Like many others stated, this movie really is kind of a mess, but it is a beautiful mess. So let me get into the qualities that I actually like about this movie that hold it together. The cast is star-studded. Gaga may have had inconsistencies with the accent, but she does a great job of embodying the energy of Patrizia. The way she carries herself, the expressions, her attitude, it all feels on par. Adam Driver does a wonderful job, especially in the beginning, portraying this awkward, soft-spoken character. I mean, it's awkward. I feel that through the screen, and I think it was supposed to feel that way. Al Pacino is phenomenal. He's the star of the show, honestly. I love every time he's on screen. And even though Jared Leto is in an entirely different world in this movie, and he sounds like he's in Super Mario, he's campy, he's absolutely hilarious. Al and Jared could have their own movie using these characters. I really love them on screen together. In hindsight, I wish the movie was more weird, funny, and campy like this. I think you can get away with a lot of mistakes when you purposefully choose to go all in on that route, and you have the possibility of creating a cult classic, especially with larger than life personalities and wild makeup like Paolo Paulo. Makeup and costume design was perfect, by the way. I didn't even recognize Jared. If I hadn't known it was him going in, I would have no idea. The cinematography was that classic gray, moody Ridley Scott vibe, and it worked well for the film. This movie does have a lot of stuff going for it, but ultimately I don't think it's quite the movie that I thought or hoped I was going to get. So I don't categorize this as a must-go because of the pacing, tone, and consistency issues. But I would still label this as a might-go. Would I skip Thanksgiving for it? No. Does it have to be seen in theaters? No. A movie like this can be seen at home just fine. But if you're a Lady Gaga fan and you want to see Jared Leto parade around in a chubby suit sounding like Mario, then I think this is well worth your time. After having seen it, I'd be pretty surprised if it got nominated for all the Oscars that I first expected it to. I think a lot of people are going to enjoy it, but I think a lot of cinema heads are going to see some inconsistencies. I don't know. We'll see. Only time will tell. Ultimately, just like music and art in general, movies are very subjective and we all see something different. This is just what I saw, so tell me what you saw. Thanks for watching, everybody. Make sure you hit the like button for us, hit subscribe if you want to see more, share it with a friend. I'll link my socials below, and I hope everybody has a wonderful day. See ya!